Welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name is Carrie Barnum for New Shelves Books, and we are here to talk about publishing, marketing, and the business of being an author. You can join us live any Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern by going to newshelves.com/FAF. You're also welcome to email your questions anytime to info at newshelves.com. I save those up and I answer them on Fridays. If you're not able to attend live, this is how you get your questions in. And we do put the replays up on YouTube so that way you don't miss anything. We have a couple of questions live today, as well as some emailed in questions. So we're going to jump right in. Question from Beth starting off. I've been hearing that Facebook ads aren't working well. Consequently, I'm reluctant to start advertising there again. What's your impression of what's happening at Facebook? Any suggestions for how to break back in after a month plus break? I think that ads are always going to see fluctuations, and I've still had a lot of success with Facebook ads. I think it's important that some people are going to share their experiences with you, but that doesn't mean that will be your experience, because in order to know how their experience might correlate with yours, you have to know, they know what they're doing? Are they running their ads well? Were they previously having success and now they're not? Have algorithms changed and have they followed those updates or not? What genre are they in? Who's their audience? So there's so much that goes into if one author says, yeah, Facebook ads are junk or Facebook ads aren't working for me. It doesn't mean that they're not working. There's so many little details that go into that. And the same thing's true for Amazon ads. I think I've shared with you all that I have some authors who just do great over on Facebook ads, and Amazon ads don't really work well at all, and vice versa. And I have one author who has two book series, and one series does fantastic on Facebook ads. I mean, we have such great ROI. She's making a living, literally a living, off of her books through Facebook ads. But the other series doesn't do well on Facebook ads. It does really well in Amazon ads. So part of it is just the type of reader, the demographic of reader. The one book series is a women's fiction kind of cozy mystery feel, and it's on Kindle Unlimited. And that series appeals to people who are on Facebook, that demographic. But more than that, it also is one of those books that's meant for people who just read voraciously. And people find that on Facebook. Whereas the other series is it's still got really broad appeal. It's women's fiction, but it has some niche topics about disabilities that makes it something that honestly more people search. And we find that while she did have Kindle Unlimited page reads, a lot of her sales were coming from outright ebook and paperback purchases. Actually, she has a lot of paperback purchases for that book. It's a different reader and reader demographic that's reading each book. And there's some crossover, but there's some really clear differences that we've seen in sales patterns and audience patterns. And so ads work better in one place than the other. So as far as Facebook ads, I would say if you have not tried your own ads recently, try your own ads. Facebook has been doing a lot of updates for, well, I'm sure we've all heard that the fact checkers may be going away. There's a lot of people saying they're going to leave Facebook. I mean, this is not new. There's been on and off with social media and Facebook for a long time. So we'll see what happens there. But Facebook has also been doing a lot on their ad dashboard to update how ads are run, how they're using AI in their ads, and different things like that. So if someone is relying on old ads that haven't been updated recently, what can happen is that Facebook notices that these are old ads that don't really use their new tools, and they start to kind of slowly fade them out, meaning that they're just not delivering as much. So it's like running your phone on a really old update. Eventually, you're going to have problems. And so you've got to update your phone in order for your phone to run and all your apps to run properly. And the same is true with ads, especially Facebook ads, where we're using ad creative and different things like that. So I personally have still had a lot of success. I will say that ad space was more competitive and prices were higher during the holidays. This is normal, happens every single year. And then, of course, the beginning of the year, people are really busy and going back to work and school, and we've had snow and all sorts of things. But I personally would say give those ads a try for yourself, follow your own data for a solid month, and then work from there. Uh, I was approached by a marketing agency that claims to be affiliated with Amazon. How can I check them out? Amazon does not have a marketing agency of any kind. If there is a ad agency or marketing agency using the words in their company, their name, KDP, Amazon, they are pretty much just assume they are a scam. And also, I've said and always say, be wary of anyone who reaches out to you initially. I'm not saying that no legitimate people will ever reach out to you first, but in most cases, be very wary of any marketing advertising agency that reaches out to you when you didn't sign up for their newsletter list. You didn't reach out to them. You weren't part of one of their programs they were teaching. In most cases, those are going to be scams, spams. They're not worth it. They will take your money, make big promises, and small deliveries. So that's one of the first things I say is, did you reach out to them first or did they reach out to you? If they reached out to you on social media, it's even more of a red flag. So I would steer clear of that personally, but you can always take the name of the company and search that with the word scam or reviews. That's a good way to do it, but also ask them what books that they're, look at their website. What books are they featuring? Ask them what books they've worked on. There was this recent, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. Someone recently asked me about a company, and I said, well, every single book that they use as examples on their website, I know they did not work with those authors. They're huge authors like Stephen King. This company did not work with Stephen King. So that's a red flag as well. When your examples of, we can get you so many reviews, and then they're picturing a book of, Stephen King's book with 21,000 reviews. They didn't have a part in that. Why are they using that as their social credibility? So that's one of the things I look for as well. But always, always, I'm wary of if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. And if they reach out to you first, that's another red flag for me. Yeah, absolutely. And if someone, there are a lot of people who will be very aggressive, who will aggressively like come after you, say, I can make your sales better, I can do this, I can do that. Feel free to block them. The nice thing about social media is that we can block people and they just don't have access to us any longer. So you don't have to be, um, you know, assaulted in your messages with that. Let's see. Sounds good, Kevin. All right. You bet. Let's see. So Shayna says she missed a lot of my talk last night because my kids were being loud. I had to send my kids to their room. I get it. And then the question is, did you say do not put the word book in Amazon keywords for ads? For example, instead of preschool books, I just put preschool. So Shayna, you kind of got it. You don't want to put the word book, Kindle, any of those qualifiers in your metadata keywords when you are self-publishing or if you have a small press that is going to publish your book. So in the back end of KDP, we have 7 metadata keywords that we're allowed to help optimize our book on the Amazon's platform. You are not allowed to use the name of famous people. And sometimes if it's historical, you can get away with it. But if it's like celebrities, famous people, the name of other authors, the name of other book titles is not allowed in those metadata keywords. And it's kind of wasted space and it's not encouraged to put the words books, Kindle, paperback, that kind of thing in those keywords. Actually, Amazon is starting to kick those books back and say, hey, you have something in your metadata keywords that's not allowed. So for example, if you have a historical fiction book and you're doing your metadata keywords, you cannot put in your keyword section in the back end of KDP historical fiction paperback. They'll kick it back because it says paperback. Now, if you are doing keywords for ads, you can and should absolutely use those qualifiers for your keywords. So preschool books for 3 to 5 year olds, those types of things. Ebooks you wouldn't really use for kids, but you could qualify with like Kindle Unlimited ebooks, different things like that. And that is for ads. If you're running sponsored keyword ads on Amazon, yes, you can use those qualifiers. My talk last night was through ESWA, the Eastern Shore Writers Association. And while it was free and open to the public, the recording's only available to it's only available to the members of ESWA. And since I did that for them, I don't control that. So sorry, but I will try to make sure that I do share when I have any upcoming talks. I have a couple coming up and I'll be at a couple of conferences. So I'll try to share those as they come along. Let's see. All right, let's get into some of our email questions. Actually, because we were talking about scams and spams and all things, one of the questions Eileen had, and I'm going to just read it, is I keep getting emails supposedly from Facebook, Meta for Business, telling me that there are problems with my account. The most recent one says that we have received multiple user reports indicating that your advertiser account is not compliant with our advertising policies and community standards. Most of these things want them to click on a link. These are in most cases scams. Do not click on a link in an email. If you don't know the sender, do not click on an email. One of the things I always say is that if you're getting emails that say they're from Facebook or Meta Business, make sure that you check the domain that it is coming from. If it's for Facebook, it will come from meta.com, account.meta.com, facebookmail.com. It will include priority.facebook.mail.com, facebook.com, support.facebook.com, developers.facebook.com. Notice they're all ending in facebook.com, fb.com, and metamail.com. So there is a full list, and I'll drop that in the chat for anyone who's live with us in case you want to screenshot it or keep that. But I always, first and foremost, I check the domain name, because that is such a big tell on if these are legit. A lot of the times, if you check where the email is coming from, it's from Yahoo, it's from Gmail, it's from like random stuff. These are not legitimate. So you don't need to respond. You don't need to do anything. Another thing I will say is that my Facebook page, my Facebook account that's associated with my ads accounts and everything like that, is connected to an email address that's not publicly known. So my Facebook account and ad account are not associated with a New Shelves email. They are not associated with something that's publicly known for me. So if I am getting emails to these, if I'm getting an email to Carrie@newshelves.com about a ad infringement, I know right away that it's a scam, because that's not the ad that's hooked up to my account. Facebook has no way of, knowing, oh, well, the person who's got this account also has this email. It doesn't work like that. So that is one piece of advice, is that sometimes it does pay off to have your social media accounts under the login in the connected email, under an email address that's not very publicly known. But otherwise, just don't click on things. Don't click on things in an email. Check the domain name. And if you're still unsure, log into your account, go to the business suite, go to your notifications. If there is truly an error, I had an ad rejected the other day. That notification came, I did get an email about it, but I also got a notification right on the business page, and it was right there and I could see and deal with it there. So they're going to put notifications right in app as well as in your email. So those are the things I would initially do when getting those kinds of emails. And in a different kind of questionable thing, I had Jeanette, and Jeanette said that she had been approached by someone. I won't list the company because I don't know this company, and I can't verify whether they're legitimate or not. But she was approached by someone from a company offering a deal to promote her book, and saying that instead of $2,000, it'd be $899. Or if you go to their website, it's listed as $4,999, but they'll do it for $899. I will tell you right now, I don't know of any legitimate company that will set a price and then be able to do it for literally a fraction of that, in most cases. Now, that's not to say no one runs discounts. I do it with my programs, occasionally, not very often. But when someone's setting a price super high with a crazy discount like that, that kind of makes my spidey senses go up. And then, going on to say from Jeanette is I get a lot of these sorts of solicitations, but this person has actually read my books and can discuss the characters and the historical research. Where can I go to find out if this company is legitimate business that actually works with authors and not just another scam? She did send me the web page, and this is the web page that when I looked them up, number one, when I Googled them, I could find almost nothing. When I Googled the person's name, I could find almost nothing. When I went to the website, it was kind of a blank landing page. And also, um, when I was looking at that web page, all of the examples they gave of successful books, there was no way they were working with those books. This was the Stephen King one. There's just simply no way that this company with no presence was working with Stephen King and some of the other big people. So I suggested emailing back and asking which books they had worked with. Because even if someone has done great things, have they done great things with books like yours, authors like you, and genres like you? But also they should be able to show you some real world work of what they've done. And I'll tell you, I've done some work with authors and I would consider it all great work, but some people have had more success than others. Some get more reviews than others. Um, and that's not to say that I don't have some clients that are like very, I have some very, very successful clients, and I'm happy to share those pages. Um, but a lot of the people that you work with as someone in marketing and with authors is there are people who are doing good, but they're not all, super duper famous authors. That doesn't usually happen. And if so, that person is usually not an individual company. They are usually with a big publishing house as a in-house publicist. So those are some of the things that I look for. Again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I feel like it's a new year and there are new scams. People are hitting it hard. So just be wary, that can you talk to this person? Can you see this person online and see that they know what they're talking about? It's not the reason that I do Free Advice Friday, but one benefit of Free Advice Friday is it allows people to get to know me and connect with me and see my style, and also that I know anything about what I'm talking about before committing to working with me. Because when you work with someone, I'll tell you what, I spend more time with some of my authors than I do with my husband. Just because we are intensely working together on a project for months, sometimes, years if we've got multiple books underway. And so you want to make sure that, you know, they know what they're doing, that they can deliver on what they promise, and you want an idea of their style. So just one of those things that we have to kind of look at. And yes, Kevin is also making a comment. They may have used AI to read her book and give them details about it that would convince them of their legitimacy. Yes, yes, and yes. I am seeing this more and more. Now, I don't want to paint AI with like one giant terrible brushstroke because there are some benefits to AI. I even talked about using AI in marketing last night in my talk. But I will say that I'm seeing this in the scam outreach where people are saying, "Oh, I read your book. I love blah, blah, blah." You know what they're doing? They are taking your website and running AI through it, or they're taking your book description. And if you have any written reviews on Amazon, they're taking your book description and your written reviews, and they are asking for a pitch letter, with specifics about the characters and the plot and the setting based on that information. It's really easy to do. I have I have to preface this by saying I did this, but I did this because I was like, there's no way it can come up with anything decent. I mean, it was decent. It had enough information that it was like, I see how people are fooled by this. It's not hard to do. And so that is one of the things we have to be wary of is did they really read your book? Honestly, I can't read the book of everyone I talk to. There are not enough hours in the day. I don't even fully, I skimmed through the books that I work with, but I don't read every word of every book I work with. I can't. There aren't enough minutes in the day. Now, there are clients that I have that I do some developmental editing with, and I do read through when I give them feedback on their works, but that's clearly stated in our contract. Every book that I run ads for, every book that goes in a library mailing and different things like that, I do not read them cover to cover. And so that leads me to say that if someone's reaching out to you saying, "Oh, I read your book," or "I will read your book," chances are they are not. They are going to get a summary somehow. Um, and I would rather be upfront and honest about that. But some people are using that as a way to build trust when maybe there shouldn't be. It does. So I will not lie that yes, sometimes it feels like it takes the fun out of being an author, having so many predators and scams. And not only that, but writing and marketing and selling books is hard work. And it is work. Even if it's a hobby, it's work. And so it can be easy to let that take the fun out of being an author. But I have to say, there's so many good things about it too. There's so many good things about writing a book, about being a part of a community, about learning new things. Because even as an author, I bet you never thought that you'd learn about advertising, that you'd learn about algorithms and AI and all sorts of things like that. And I had a teacher in high school, he was my favorite, who used to just always say, "It's good to know stuff." And I think that it's one of those things that if your hobby is learning and writing, then it's good to know stuff. And yes, it can be scary and overwhelming. And sometimes, you know, people got to take the fun out of it. But there's still a lot of really great things about being a part of the author community, about knowing that you are one of the very few people who have written a book and that you have a story to share. And it's always so fun when you get the reviews and the feedback and people saying, "Wow, I identified with this character," or, "Your nonfiction book helped me get out of debt," or whatever it is. So oftentimes you do it for the love of it, not because you love everyone who's a part of it. And that's just part of anything, I think. Let's see. All of your talks give a ton of great information. Thank you. For people like me who are new to the whole publishing experience, will you review or help with all of this when we start working together? Yes, Pam, anyone that I work with, um, most of this, we dive into it. Sometimes I'll say, "Hey, there's a YouTube on this, let me send it to you." And sometimes we talk about it more specifically. One of the things with Free Advice Friday is, in the most part, we're talking about generalities. And that hopefully still gives you guys a lot of value, but I'm not able to dig into each one of your books, your genres, and your specific needs and marketing. So that is when I get to work with people one on one. We're not looking at, "Well, maybe this is a good idea," or getting words like, "It depends." We're looking more specifically at you, your book, and your needs, and we're tailoring things for you. And as I said, I work pretty closely with the authors that I do work with. And so um, most all of them will tell you that, yeah, we're in it together and we do a lot of this and reviewing for you specifically. So I like to think so. And I will say most of my clients are return clients. Most of the people that I work with are from word of mouth or they're return clients where they've got a new book out. So um, in a lot of cases, I think we're doing a lot right. I like to think so. Let's see. That was the email about that. Oh, I did want to talk about this. Jane had asked, "Could you discuss best practices for a book reveal? My book is coming out in October, but it's now available for pre-order. Do you think it's too soon to start the reveal?" And this is tricky. So you have a new book and you want to market it and you want to market it as early as possible. Absolutely. But how do you do that in such a way that people aren't just darn tired of it by the time it comes out in October? That's 10 months from now. I think one of the things to remember is when you're marketing early is think about the audience you're marketing to. When you have a book up for pre-order in January and it doesn't release till October, this is not the time to be putting it in front of your audience again and again. They're going to be tired of it and annoyed that they have to wait so long. This is the time to be marketing to the trade. This is the time for trade reviews. This is the time to start pitching interviews, book lists, and different things like that. Not to say that you can't tease out to your audience that things are coming, but I wouldn't be talking about it every day or every week because they're going to be sick of it. Now, I generally say that if you're doing a cover reveal, if you're really featuring that, I wouldn't go too much earlier than about 6 months out, when you're really talking about it. So you can either do a cover reveal now that it's available, kind of, oh, here it is. I'm so excited, more to come. And then you kind of let it sit for a month and then you talk about it again, you let it sit and you talk about it again. Or you talk about the process of, got another trade review. I got this, I got that. But you spread it out. We don't need to talk about it every day. Or if it's out, you don't necessarily have to make a good or a big deal about it. You are so welcome to just wait until about 6 months out when you do a cover reveal and you lead up to that cover reveal. Oh, I've got the cover. I can't wait to show you guys. I'll be showing it on this day or doing that. Or, what do you think should be on the cover? Different things like that. Even if the cover's already done, ask people for their opinion, engage them, that kind of thing. But definitely tease it out slowly. If you are going to talk about your book on pre-order early, I would consider that if you're doing that, are you going to do any pre-order incentive? For example, I have an author who also has her book up on pre-order. The cover is coming out from the publisher in the next couple of weeks, and she is going to do a cover reveal early. But part of what she's doing is she's doing a pre-order offer that anyone who pre-orders the book and sends her proof of purchase, she's going to send them a kind of prequel short story to the novel. So they get exclusive content and they'll get exclusive updates as the launch comes closer. So they're doing a pre-order. If that's a nonfiction book, that might be a workbook, it might be a class, a webinar, something like that. But for fiction, short story, cut scenes, exclusive updates might be something that you would do. So if you're going to do it early and you're going to talk about it often, at least have something to offer now that they're going to get. Because none of us really like to be told, ooh, look at this bright, shiny thing you can buy. You'll get it next year. That's when we're all like, oh, like when you see that there's a new season of a show coming out, and then it's like, yeah, it's coming in 2026. I'm like, well, I will forget everything by then, but thank you. So I do think that's one of the things to consider that you kind of have to tease it out a little bit. Um, so that's one of the things I would just think about. And as we're coming up, make sure, again, your book's not news unless you make it news. If you've got 10 months to market this book, start thinking about how you're going to lead up to it. Maybe you're only mentioning your book once or twice a month to start. Then you're going to mention it a little bit more and a little bit more until the last, month. It's pretty much all the book all the time. But you still have to make sure you're working in your engagement post, or else people are just going to be like, wah, wah, we've heard this before. So think about that. Think about different ways that you can use it and go from there. Yes. So if you are looking to get in touch with me directly, you can email. You can either do info@newshelves.com or you can get me directly at Carrie@newshelves.com. I will put them both in here. Whoops, there we go. And that's a great way to get in touch with me. Let's see. All right. I thought you guys know me. I am the junkie of all newsletters in publishing and marketing information. I'm reading about it all the time, every day. And so I did just this week get lots of information about bestsellers of 2024. And I always like to share those with you because I think it's interesting. It's kind of been considered that romance, romantasy, and domestic suspense, while it has been the king or queen, however we see it, doesn't matter, of 2024, we are seeing that that may start declining in 2024, that there is going to be a little less push for that romantasy that's kind of taken over the bestseller list for the last couple of years. And we are going to see other things starting to trend a bit more. But as far as book sales, always think it's funny. 20% of the top 200 print books, according to Circana Bookscan, which is like the place that counts for book sales, were written by four authors. So I'm going to say that again. 20% of the top 200 print books were written by four authors. 16 spots taken by Sarah J. Maas, who is a romantasy author. 11 by Frida McFadden, who writes suspense and thrillers. 8 by Anna Hong. I think I said that right. If not, I apologize. I should have looked that up in advance. And then 6 by Colleen Hoover. And Colleen Hoover writes women's fiction, and as does Anna, I believe. So the biggest title of the year was Kristen Hanna's The Women, which sold 1.49 million copies since publishing in February. So we have talked about before, like how many books sell a million copies in a year. So I just want, again, to reiterate this. The biggest title of the year had almost an entire year to sell, and that title sold 1.49 million copies, which means not a lot of other books probably sold a million or more copies. And that's okay, but it's just interesting to see. And then some of these books, it's also interesting to note that only 57 of the top 200 books were frontlist titles, meaning published in 2024. Quite a few of these books were published prior to 2024, which also backs up what I've often said is that when we have book sales, the first year, for most books, honestly, the first year is where you establish a book. It is where you get your reviews. It's where you get your social proof and you figure out your genre and you figure out your algorithms and your optimization. Most books sell best in years 2 and 3, and sometimes year 4. And I think that's hard for people because you work towards this book launch and you think, I'm doing all this work and all these things to make my book a success. And you launch a book, and usually you see like a nice, jump of sales, and then it trickles off, and you kind of go, why did I work so hard? But you have to keep in mind that your book launch is when you're establishing your book. It's when you're getting your initial readers who will review later. It's where you're building your social proof. It's where you have a chance to enter awards and lists and different things like that. And then after that, after the 6 month mark or so, into years 2 and 3 is when you really start working on the marketing, on finding new readers and advertising to them and getting them to buy your book. And that's where we see the most sales. I was even looking at book sales with a client of mine, and he was feeling a little bit down about his sales for December. And I said, well, let's take a look historically at your sales from December. And we looked back, and the book came out in 2021, and 2024 had better sales than the first year that this book came out. They are slow, but they are consistent. And so this book that had half as many sales last year has doubled sales this year. So sometimes looking backwards is such a helpful tool for evaluating if something's working and how it's working. As authors grow to be more successful, I think we forget sometimes what it's like when you only had 10 book sales in a month. When you have 100 book sales in a month, but you've had 1,000 before, it's when you're like, oh, well, it didn't do very well. But looking at your stats year over year can really be helpful to see how you've grown, what months might impact your book sales, looking backwards at what marketing campaigns did you run when, and how did that impact your sales. And that's one of the things we don't do enough. We tend to look at sales during this day, this week, sometimes in a month, but not often do we look backwards at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year. What was it like 2 or 3 years ago? And so that's one of the things I often track for authors I work with, because I'm able to say, I know December wasn't as high of sales as you hoped for based on November sales. But when we look at your December sales, you've got twice as many sales as you did this time last year. So that's one of the things I really encourage people to look back at. If you are launching a new book series and you're going, well, that flopped. Did it? Look back at your first book series and how that one came out and how slow sales were. Are you doing the same, worse, better? Most of the time you're doing better and you don't even realize it because you've grown accustomed to success, which is a good feeling, but sometimes perspective is where it's all at. Let's see, would Goodreads be a resource for finding lists that may be a possibility for your book in its marketing stage? Yes, yes, and yes. Goodreads is filled with lists. They actually have a tab called lists. And the great thing is there are a lot of lists on there that you can add your own books to, or better yet, buddy up with a friend. Buddy up with a friend. You don't even have to be in the same genre. Buddy up with a friend and say, I am going to find a couple of lists for your book. I'm going to look for 5 lists that I think are a good fit for your book, and I'm going to add your book to them. Will you do the same for me? This is where we are truly trying to place the book in the right spot. But then what happens is that when I'm searching for thriller books 2024, a list is going to pop up on Goodreads that says books to read in 2024, best thrillers. And when I click on it, guess what? Now your book is on there. Now, this is not anything that's going to change your career overnight, but I will say getting on these lists can give you some easy exposure. It's quick, it's free. And again, if you buddy up with a friend, you're not putting your own book on the list, which you can also do, but sometimes it's nice just to have someone else do that for you. Um, so that's an idea that you can do as far as Goodreads. You can also be a part of Goodreads communities. Now, remember, this is like social media, so it's going to take time to build on Goodreads, but there are community groups and chats that are about different genres, different book clubs, and you can be a part of those as an author. And the more that you're a part of the community, the more likely people are to know you, to ask to feature you, and different things like that. But that will take time. This is not overnight. I often say there's no overnight success. People see success overnight sometimes, or things go viral, but success is usually a long time in coming. It is working at it day after day, week after week, and month after month. There's a lot that goes into an overnight success. Yes, how do we find that list? Let me see. Give me a moment. Let me see if I can find Goodreads page to share with you all. All right, let me share my page. Good question. Let's see. I'm going to share my Goodreads page. Actually, I lied. It's not my Goodreads page. It's Chris's Goodreads page, but he'll allow it. So when we're going here and we go to community, there are groups and discussions. Ask the author. So you can ask the author questions. You can go and they have featured authors that you can ask questions of, more featured authors, but you can also go to just about any author profile and ask them questions. So sometimes you can even in a Goodreads author page, you can actually just go in and they're like answer these questions, and you can just answer questions and start conversations from your own author page. But there are also groups where you can join different groups, and you can see there's a lot of groups here, featured groups, groups upon groups, and you can browse groups by tag. We can go to romance, book club, let's say young adults. Oh, look, there's all of these things. And these are groups that you can start being a part of. They're like an online forum. Just know that you have to be active in them to get anything out of them. But if we want to go here, this is where we find giveaways, which we've talked about before. And this is where we can find lists. So if we go to these lists, Listopia, and there are so many tags. So you can search just these tags, fiction, historical fiction, young adult, all sorts of things. Or we can literally search something like 2025. Let's just search that. And all of these lists, best books of the decade, 2020s, books I have every intention of reading this year. Can't wait books for 2025. Best fantasy of the 2020s. All sorts of different things here. So you do a keyword that you think best fits a book. And then when you do that, you click on it. your computer slowly responds to it, and then you read the top here. So adult sci-fi, fantasy, and horror only. Absolutely no YA kid lit and no romantasy. There's lists for those already. Standalones, first in series, and sequels to be published in 2025 are all eligible for this list. So please, please, please make sure that you're reading this part and you're following the rules of the list. It makes everyone's life easier. You don't want to put a book that doesn't belong on a list. So if I'm like, okay, well, my book fits into this, or my friend's book fits into this, add books to this list. You click here, you can search your books, you can search a new book. Um, I'm just going to click on this one. This is not going on here because it's not it. But so you want to search your book, and this is on your list, or you can do a search. And this is not a science fiction book. It is just the book that I happened to think of. So then I can say who to believe and then vote for this book to add it to the list. So that's an option there. It's kind of a rabbit hole, to be honest. There are so many lists on here, but it's one of the things that you can do. You can also create a new list. So you can create a list that is Indie Authors 2025 books I want to read. And you can work with other authors to put that on there and then, have people go and vote and share it. You can vote on different things and like different lists. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. It can be at the moment be a time suck. I have gone down that bunny hole, but I will also say that if you're trying to do it, it's something that doesn't cost anything and it doesn't have to take a long time to put your book or a friend's book on a couple of lists pretty quickly. So that's one of the things that's kind of fun to do. Let's see. All right. Yes, under the browse tab, you got it. All right, question here. Let's see, Richard, that's more specific to you, so I'll follow up with you after our call and check into that for you. All right, let's see. So we did Goodreads. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about, where is it? Oh, I wanted to just talk about kind of the deal. So the reason why, even if you're an indie author, we follow traditional publishing is because traditional publishing will often predict kind of sales trends going forward. And so the deals in 2024, the books that were put under a deal with a publisher actually did pretty well overall. It was a record-setting year, not by a ton, but it was a record-setting year in 2024, which means that that is a strong sense of what's going to happen in 2025, 2026, since most deals do kind of happen and then it takes about 2 years for them to be published. However, we did see a continued weakening in the children's market. This has been something that the children's market spiked during COVID when people are home, the pandemic. Kids were actually reading again. Imagine that. But since then, it's been kind of slowly declining. And so I've gotten on my soapbox about that one and how I think it really has a lot to do with the devices that our kids are on and the fact that we don't encourage kids to read anymore. Here's an iPad, here's a phone. We don't necessarily say, go grab a book. And so we're just continuing to see that. I think it's one of those things that I'm curious to see. We have seen audiobooks for children kind of come up a little bit, ebooks making a little bit of headway. So I'm curious to see if kind of those literacy efforts will move to the digital era of reading for children at a younger age, but time remains to be seen. But at the moment, as far as deals for children and in the children's market, it is still declining a little bit, I have to say. So that's one of the things that we kind of watch. Adult fiction continues major growth, which has just been going on literally since the pandemic, since Colleen Hoover kind of went viral. And so it's gaining for the sixth straight year, and it's up a 10% lead over last year. So adult fiction is still looking really good. Nonfiction had a bit of a hard year last year, but it's rebounding, and there is actually 11% growth which is great to see because nonfiction had a rough year last year, but it seems like that is kind of coming up a little bit. So those are the things that we're looking at. And also translation deals were super strong. Translation deals were up 13% compared to 2023. So translations is something that's been talked about a lot. I think we are honestly going to see a lot of AI translations. We have a lot of publishers and companies, even large publishers, really playing around with AI translations. And I think we are going to continue to see a lot of that happening, where translations are going to become easier to produce. So we're going to see more deals for them, and we're going to see translations happen more often. So that's one of the things that I kind of watch and see because, again, what the traditional publishing industry is doing, your job, if you're an indie author, is to be your own publishing house. And so it's helpful no matter how you're published to look at the trends. Now, if you are a traditional author who is trying to go for an agent and a traditional publishing deal, those numbers matter because kind of where you're at. And if you're an indie author, I think it's really important to also track because these give clues as to what trends are going to become popular and what you should start looking into and learning about from there. Let's see, Lars' question. I'm beginning to send out initial query submissions. Yay, good job to publishers that allow direct submissions without an agent. Are these publishers legit? So some are. There are some publishers that allow direct queries and they don't require an agent. Always make sure you look them up as well as possible. Writer Beware is a really good resource to look at those. A lot of university presses will allow you to submit directly. Where are some other places? They're in almost every genre. A lot of Christian publishers let you submit directly. There are a couple cozy mystery and romance publishers that are like smaller presses that allow you to submit directly. A lot of university presses, as I mentioned, allow you to submit directly. So there are quite a few that are legitimate, but you do need to look them up and just be very. And if they offer you a deal, just take a breath, make sure that they're offering you a traditional publishing deal. Some of these publishers do both traditional and hybrid. So they will offer you a deal and you're thinking, I submitted as a traditional author, they're going to offer me a traditional deal. But sometimes they come back with a hybrid deal and it is slightly different and they do treat those books slightly different. That's where you're helping to pay for the production of the book. In some cases, that's completely legitimate. But in some cases, it may not be what you want. So just be aware of that. All right. Any advice for how to pitch a translation deal? Absolutely. If you're looking to pitch a translation deal, I think it's important to know what topics are kind of trending in different languages and know if your book is a good fit for one of those. For example, romance does really well. Actually, romance and thrillers or kind of like crime noir does really well in Germany. And so that might be a good place for people who are writing those genres. So India and Japan do a lot for business books, might be a good place there. So first you need to do the research of what is trending in translations where, and then most of the time you can actually go directly and pitch a publisher your translation rights. Now, there are also agents who will specifically work in subrights to pitch your book for you. And both are an option, and they're both completely legitimate. It can sometimes be easier for an author to get translation deals pitching themselves than it is like pitching a traditional publisher here. They will want to know why they have a chance of success. How's your book selling here? How's it relevant to that language or culture? And different things like that. But that's where I would start there. All right. See, I think that, yes, awesome. Thank you, Al. Good for today. Thank you for joining me. Looks like my internet's stalling out. I might be freezing. All right, you guys. Thank you for being here. I hope you have an awesome week. Stay safe, have fun. We will be back next Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you think of a question, you can always bring it on Friday, or you can just email it in advance, info@newshelves.com. Again, I'll save it up and then I'll answer it next Friday. Thanks everyone for being here. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.